Hello, everybody. So today we're going to continue talking about economics and kind of showing how, with the changes that were going on with like economic liberalism and even the knowledge economy, how those things are going to shift and develop things in the developing world at this time. And we'll get into a kind of just a few examples, but let's get into it. And so, one of the big things here is that we have manufacturing. Manufacturing, as a result of economic liberalism, starts to move across the world. And also, we have the growth of global businesses that do business literally almost everywhere. And so, we'll be talking about those in a separate video. What you also will have increasing is over the 20th century, in most places in the world, there will be increased wages. And as a result, there's increased demand for things. And so here's just a great example. So Kellogg's is a huge business, worldwide, and these are all the different places where they produce goods. I mean, look at all those different countries. So the light blue countries are places where Kellogg's either produces their cereal or their snacks. So 27 plants that are worldwide. That's huge. And one of the big things that really starts to push this, and probably the best example of changes, is fast fashion. And what I mean by fast fashion, and the places where fast fashion is going to be created are places like the Honduras, Bangladesh, and Vietnam. What you end up having is that these companies over here, there are some just great examples of where you're going to make clothing, are looking to decrease labor costs so that they can put out more things for people to buy. Because what we have primarily in the West throughout the 20th century are increased wages and demand for clothing, but demand for clothing that isn't, say, top of the line or crazy expensive. And so places like Bangladesh and Vietnam, as well as Honduras, prove to be places where they can make all of these goods different than other countries in the world, or where they were building things. And most importantly, most often not making them in their home countries. And so, but to give you an idea of how huge this is, in Bangladesh, 80% of their exports are fast fashion. Okay, in Vietnam, $45 billion a year, okay, or in $45 billion in the year 2017 were generated from fast fashion. And so as a result, you're looking at more people that have access to a better wage. It's still a lower wage than most of the rest of the world. And that gives those folks more opportunities to move into the middle class and get out of kind of the group of people that are just so susceptible that any one little thing sends you into complete poverty. And for many people, millions of people in the world have come out of poverty as a result of this. However, is really, really rough. And it's something that you may want to think about where you're buying your clothes from. Really, really low wages, brutal work conditions, lack of unions and stuff like that. And the best example is probably the Rana Plaza collapse that happened in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Here you had an 8-story building that was the center for a variety of different clothing companies. The building had a variety of issues. So like number one, it was not actually built to be an industrial facility, but it was made one anyway. They built it 3 floors higher than it was supposed to be. And actually they weren't permitted, but nobody checked up on the permits, particularly because they filled it with like sweatshops to make clothing. Building owners actually ignored cracks and other structural issues within the buildings and ordered their workers to still come to work. And you had a collapse. 1,134 people were killed and 2,500 people were injured. As a result, you actually had strikes and riots by other garment workers in the regions for months. And what it did was explode the faults of worldwide retailers in demanding this fast fashion and the conditions in which people were working. And you can see there's an example of believe it or not, a secret video of the Rana Plaza building. So you can see all those people crammed in that one area. And this was the devastation. Just absolute destruction. They were finding people for days and days. And here is an example of some of the protests that were being held afterwards. Now, as far as free trade is concerned, we also have some changes and getting a little bit positive in NAFTA. So in 1994, the United States, Canada, and Mexico negotiated the NAFTA deal. Now, the U.S. has since left it and looking to renegotiate things, and that'll probably happen, I would assume, hopefully after some of the issues that we're dealing with here in 2020, particularly with the coronavirus, are done. But the goals of this was to increase the level of business between these three nations. Tariffs were eliminated from a variety of products. Actually, about 50% of tariffs were immediately gone, and most of the rest of the tariffs were set up to go away over time. Also, it put into place standards for health and industrial work, and also put in pollution mandates as well. And particularly for Mexico, this was huge. This allowed them new markets available for them to sell their goods. Particularly, look the next time if you're in a grocery market or you go food shopping, look at how much produce actually comes from Mexico, and that's as a direct result of NAFTA. I actually bought some asparagus not too long from Mexico. It also allowed manufacturing to really thrive for the first time, and maquiladoras, maybe, I'm hoping, which are new factories in Mexico were built, increasing jobs. Here you see a garment factory. They also, international car companies will also build cars in Mexico. Now, some of the issues, well, a lot of people feel that the factories were put up too quick, unsafe work conditions. Also, many American labor unions were opposed to this because of the loss of jobs in the United States. But what we're seeing is these things that were typically done in a lot of nations in the West are now spreading due to economic liberalism and things like that. And so you have the development of the garment districts in Bangladesh and Vietnam. You have the new things that are happening in Mexico. And so what we're seeing with these economic policies is that it's not just like a nationwide thing. We're looking at worldwide economic change and this idea of globalization. Okay, so now these businesses are getting bigger and bigger. And so like if you shop from the Gap, odds are your shirt was made in Bangladesh. And that's really, really fascinating when we look at the chain of events that leads to that. All right, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of a sense of what's going on, and I will talk to you guys soon.